You want a tiny SSD RAID for editing on the go with massive amounts of data? Look no further. This is the Express M.2 Ultra, a tiny DIY NVMe RAID from OWC.
You're watching CineD, supported by B&H and CVP.
Welcome from NAB 2026. I'm here at the OWC booth with its founder, Larry. How are you doing?
Doing great. Glad to see you again. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having us again. So you guys just introduced a bunch of new products, but the one that excited us the most is actually a tiny RAID system. So what can you tell us about that?
This is our Express Forum 2 Ultra. It's a DIY solution. It's the first of its kind. It allows up to 4 M.2 2280s to be installed by the user. You can get sustained data rates of over 6,000 megabytes a second with this solution. It's 80 gigabit. It is the first and only Thunderbolt 5 solution of its kind ever. So this is a certified Thunderbolt 5 solution, exceptionally high performance, exceptionally compact, very quiet. It's designed to be super efficient for passive heat dissipation. For protection, it also has a smart fan that will come on. Now, we don't control the blades that go inside, so there is fan protections. The blades you use generate a little bit more heat and can be passively dissipated, but the fans are also very quiet. That blue LED, which you can see on the one that's running live, that you can turn off. I mean, it's able to be on or off. That indicates power. The activity LEDs are very soft green. They kind of glow with inside. They're individual for the drives, so you can troubleshoot it. These are your own drives. If there's driving an issue, it's very easy to identify. You know the drive's active, which is, I think, very important in workflows. That hey, things are happening. It's there's not something else someplace else that's you might be waiting on. But very quiet. Very compact and exceptionally fast, but built for reliability. I mean, that's first and foremost. These are things that can't fail when you're in those workflows, and this is built. I mean, it's got a really good pedigree. Our original Express Forum 2, which we brought out for Thunderbolt 3, has been something customers, it was kind of a fan favorite. It was a solution that we brought out, using one of our existing form factors. I'll be honest with you, had, some people, I talked to somebody today, said the fan was fine, but when you have to nitpick things, the fan was a little bit louder. The lights were a little bit brighter. It was a little bit bigger. It was Thunderbolt 3, so it wasn't obviously as quick. This is a huge upgrade, from that original solution that took all these customers' feedbacks into account, and the result is a really sleek, compact product that is, there's nothing like it.
How do you manage to build something like that and not have overheat problems?
Thermal dissipation is absolutely a science, like anything else, and it's a lot of engineering over a lot of years. You look at our first Thunderblade, you look at our Thunderblade X8 or X12, when people, after Apple really kind of started this whole revolution of things being quiet, and that goes back now about 15 years. And once the computers got quiet, the storage had to be quiet.
Because then you suddenly knew it's not the computer that's loud, right?
That's right. Well,
It must be something else.
Well, now it wasn't this. Now the computer wasn't the loudest thing. Now the next loudest thing was your storage. So a lot of engineering has gone into evolution of design over the last 10, 15 years to produce products like this that are there's a lot of work. It is hard, but the right material, it's all material science, the right material, the right design, and we can passively dissipate more effectively, really more effectively than a fan used to be alone.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to have something like this because, of course, all of us, now we have extremely powerful MacBooks, like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I would say, well, even 10 years ago, we didn't have like portable computers that were as capable as they're now. I mean, Apple just discontinued the Mac Pro, which I think, 10 years ago, people complained when they did that the last time. Sure. Because there wasn't anything to replace that. But it seems like this time nobody's really complaining because you have the Mac Studio or even the Mac Mini or the MacBook Pros. So everything is shrunk down. You can travel with it. And storage is finally catching up to be able to do that because, portable RAIDs is not something we've talked about a couple of years ago.
This is true, not like this. Our Thunderblade has been, we've been shipping the Thunderblade since 2017. That was really the first of its kind, in that form factor that was portable and that kind of performance. But, certainly we've continued that along. The Thunderblades, they ship only pre-configured. Those are highly tuned arrays that we built for, really high performance, mission critical environments. This is the first DIY solution that allows you to kind of build your own.
But DIY basically means you buy the enclosure and just fill it with your own storage.
That's right. You can put your own blades in there. You can upgrade it at will. You can set up a RAID 0, or if you want to do a multi RAID 1, you want to do 0+1, you want to do RAID 4, RAID 5. This supports it.
What's the maximum amount of storage I could put into this? Because I don't know the top capacities that are available on NVMe's right now.
Sure, easily available, well, all things are relative, would be up to 8 terabytes per bay. So 32 terabytes, and there are up to 16 terabyte M.2s that are in the market. A little bit pricey, but nonetheless are in the market, which would allow you to go to 64 terabytes in this little guy today.
You mentioned pricey. I mean, we've all been suffering from skyrocketing storage prices over the last year or so. So, I mean, as somebody who's certainly has to deal with this on a daily basis, what can you tell me? Give me some insights on the situation and why it's so difficult.
There's a lot of this, well, as you may know, there's a lot of the same money that's being counted along, how to say, in big groups where it just kind of circularly rotates. And at the same, which is driving all this AI expansion, all this AI demand, these different platforms, which then have another set of parties that are investing in data center to support all the predicted demand. Some of this is looking at it from the point of view that everybody's a winner. Is going to be the same level winner, so they're building out and looking, and they're maybe it's even overbooking capacity that, there's not going to be one, top of the pyramid AI. It's all of them are going to be equal at the top of the pyramid, which isn't true. There's going to be, certainly from a capacity use and utilization, there's going to be winners and there's going to be the second, third, whatever it might be. So at some point that, if it happens sooner than later, that will help. Because you're not going to, if everybody's building as if they're going to be number one, once some of the dust settles, a little more reality sets, and these companies none of these guys are profitable. That's another big piece. The third thing that I think is hopefully a sooner impact will have to do with what's happening with the actual construction of these data centers and the rollout of services, not just flash and memory that have some supply constraints. There's like 900 components that go into a server rack. And if one of those components isn't available or isn't supplied right, whatever it might be, that means that rack can't be deployed. And there are some indications, some little signs, if you read the tea leaves, that what's going on the shelf to support these builds and memory and CPUs and SSD are building up faster than deployment, because deployment, everything on paper is great. When you write a schedule down, that's your ideal schedule. This is going to happen here. These are the resources. But in the real world, with human beings and everything else that just happens, even weather, these things impact the actual layout and the actual construction of these facilities. So I do have this kind of hope, and we've seen a little stability in the last few weeks. It's been better than what was predicted even today, even though it's really ugly. It is ugly. I'm not gonna lie.
How much have prices increased over the last year or so?
Just since August, we were looking at 4 to 5x, in terms of actual real costs in SSD. And even in our solutions, if we weren't doing some hedging and we hadn't done some averaging, we're not kind of rolling things and also trying to perhaps overly optimistically expect stabilization and maybe even some declines in relative future. Even today's costs would be even higher. But it's still very inexpensive compared to what things were a decade ago. Things are much faster, much higher capacity. Of course, we have much higher demands for the bits that we're storing. There's just more demand on storage, how much capacity we need. But if we take a few steps back, spinning storage is still very cost effective, has not been anywhere near as impacted cost-wise. It's gone up 5-10%, and maybe even 15% depending upon the capacity. And that's driven by helium, which is not being impacted by the war, and that's an input that has gone up in cost. That's used in hard drives, a lot of hard drives, and memory. Memory and even a little bit of NAND, depending upon the drive, also goes onto these drives. And memory prices are like 10x, maybe even more than 10x what they were. They're more than 10x what they were. If you go back to May, that started about May of last year. So what I'm really trying to get to is in a workflow. A year ago, flash was just very inexpensive. You didn't have to think about it. I'm not going to worry. I'm just going to throw flash.
Nobody use hard disks anymore, right?
I'm just going to throw flash at everything because even though I don't need it, when I do need it, it's fast enough and I don't have to worry about it. Today, we're back to where, if we really look at our workflow needs and we're smart about where we deploy flash and what we can use drives for, because our spinning drive arrays, even direct attached Thunderbolt, we're providing near 2,000 megs a second, certainly sustained over 1,500 megs a second in RAID 5, which is fast enough for most 4K and even 6K raw workflows. So where do I need spinning drives? Where do I need flash performance? And ideally, folks can continue to get by. We can manage those budgets, so we still have no impact to our actual production. We get our work done. It's fast. It's fluid. and we're not breaking the bank, how do I say, or compromising in our production because of what's happened with flash.
You see a lot of clients who have to compromise because of storage prices, or not so much yet?
I think compromise, I mean, it's almost kind of, what do I need?
More efficient, probably. They have to be more efficient now, right?
I'd say it's probably, we're seeing a lot more demand on spinning drives. People are back. I mean, there's definitely more spinning hard drive being purchased in terms of the different arrays today than there was a year ago. So it's kind of shifted back in that direction. So but people, where you need it, you're still buying the flash. You're buying it more tactically.
Well, like you said, I agree. To a certain degree, it must be a bubble because this circular motion of money, like it's always a sign that something is weird. And everything, whatever goes up, must come down. So maybe in a couple of years, we'll actually have storage prices that are below than where they were before, because I'm sure they are working on a lot of capacity now that at some point might be an overcapacity. I don't know.
There is a lot more capacity coming on. Arguably, there's probably if you look at over the future course of timeline, you're going to have more capacity. I mean, there will be demand for that capacity, I believe, unless they completely break the market. I mean, there is a chance. I mean, if things really go out of control and stay elevated I mean, there's predictions even now where stuff could have been twice what it is costing today. And if it goes 2-3x where it is today, which I would say the ones that are predicting that are also the ones that have share prices that benefit from that happening in the short term. I don't think necessarily the long term. The long term is very damaging to the market. But what I'm really trying to say is get to, and I just go all over the place. But NAND prices arguably got really too cheap a couple years ago. And then you did actually have market manipulation, outside of the NAND producers. I mean, where there were large stocks of product that had been brought in when prices were artificially low, that put pressure and held that down. There was plenty of inventory. So there was manipulation is probably not quite the right word, but prices did not, the supply and demand, if all things were equal, supply and demand, flash should have probably been 10 or 20% higher last year, which would have been very reasonable. Stuff got out of, I mean, there was a lot of things after COVID caused, we want these companies to continue to invest in capacity and new architectures, and continuing to bring that technology up. And some of the pricing that existed a year ago, out of these manufacturers, just to keep the factories going, just to get all this flash consumed, just to compete with, the excesses that were suddenly being released strategically to keep pricing in a certain zone, it caused kind of a pullback. And then right after this pullback, all of a sudden this AI thing hits, and now these guys are like, well, hey, bye-bye client, everything to enterprise, and it's not a great, we don't want cycles like that.
Let's get back to the Express 4 M2 Ultra by just basically telling us pricing and availability for this.
It's available right now on OWC.com for pre-order. Mass availability through our different channel partners and broadly on Amazon, et cetera, is scheduled for mid-June, early July. But if you pre-order now, you'll be able to get units as soon as late May, and we'll continue to support that in the June as we ramp up and get this product everywhere. And this product, by the way, you only need 1 terabyte M.2s today and 4 terabytes of storage. Build it that way. Another year, another 2 years, 3 years. Put your 8 terabytes in, 16 terabytes.
You can always upgrade.
You can always upgrade. This is Thunderbolt 5. This will be a current product for years to come, and it's built to last many more years than Thunderbolt 5 will probably be around for as the fastest standard. So,
what's the standard price on this one?
sorry, yeah, it starts at $399, and then it ships with soft rate, a 3-year license bundle at $549. And I should also add, in addition to being super fast for, of course, the storage, it has a downstream Thunderbolt 5 port, which is one of the things that Thunderbolt 5 is so amazing for, because you can also plug a 6K display into the back of this. You can plug another dock. You can plug another Thunderbolt, many other Thunderbolt 5 solutions in this that won't interfere with this performance of this drive. And that's something, I like talking about Thunderbolt 5 when I get the chance. And if I have 2 seconds, I will here as well. If you look at our Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4 products, 40 gigabit products like our Thunderblade, exceptionally high performance. But when if you daisy chain anything into those solutions, even with our Thunder bays, if you plug a display in, it's going to be active. Display trumps everything. Displays have to work, and they take more bandwidth than is allocated on a Thunderbolt 40 gigabit bus than they require. And that encroaches and slows down your physical storage.
I didn't know that. That's good to know. So the Thunderbolt 5 doesn't do that?
Thunderbolt 5 adds an extra 40 gigabits of capacity dedicated just for video. So you've got a total of it's 56 gigabits for video. You can have two 6K displays and a Thunderblade X12 connected through a dock. The display is light, and the X12 is at full speed without encroachment. On a Thunderbolt 40 gigabit bus, you can take a hard drive array that's not even maxing out the 40 gigabit. It's at 1,500 megs a second. Plug in a 4K display, and it'll chop it down. It'll take some of the bandwidth required for data and leave you down to around somewhere between 800 and 1,200 megs a second. So Thunderbolt 5, in addition to being faster for data, also has a lot more bandwidth. So when you plug other devices in, you're not necessarily, you really can for the first time with a Thunderbolt 5 dock. You have a Thunderbolt 5 dock on one port with a high-speed storage device and two displays. Everything can go through the one port, and everything's at full speed and full capability.
Finally. So finally, Apple doesn't have to put more ports on their computers. I'm lacking ports on my MacBook Pro. But yeah, I mean, with Thunderbolt 5, if you can daisy chain it, it's fine, right? So
100%.
awesome. Thank you, Larry. Have a good rest of the show. And thanks everybody for watching. Stay tuned to CineD for a lot more from NAB 2026. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks.